Hello and welcome. I'm here today with Tiffany Farley, Executive Director of Gabriel Network, helping women in crisis pregnancies for over 25 years. Tiffany, welcome to Brave New Us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So great to have you. Could you explain a little bit about what Gabriel Network does?
Sure. Gabriel Network helps pregnant women in crisis and their families for not just the short term, but for long term. So the only qualifier is to be pregnant and to need some help. And so there's no other distinguishing factor. That's completely it. And we want to help every single pregnant woman that calls us and their family for long term.
Okay, great. So in the short term and the long term, so can you give us an idea of what does that mean? What does it look like in the short term and what does it look like in the long term?
So when a pregnant woman calls our helpline, we have 3 people that answer our helpline, and they all are answering from their homes in a remote setting. And 2 of the 3 are fluent in Spanish as well. So they call our helpline and they tell us a little bit about what's going on and what their needs are. And then depending on where they are calling from, we match them with a church in their area. And we cover all of Maryland and DC. And so we currently have 39 churches that we work with that have trained teams. And so we try to match the mom who's calling us with a team in her area. And so that's the very first step. No matter what it is she needs, there's nothing else that she needs to say to us that she needs, or any reason we would disqualify her from being helped. Not one. And so we work with her to figure out who would be best to serve her in her area. And then we would match the team and they would start working with her. So what that means is the team is all volunteer team at the church. It's a Christian pro-life church that we have vetted, meaning that they're pro-life from conception to natural death, and willing Christian. So, Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. And so knowing that those are their morals and principles allows us to feel comfortable with them working with this mom because she's so fragile at the time that she calls us. And we know ultimately that without the love of Jesus Christ, she may not understand just how valuable and how precious she and her baby are. And that's ultimately what we want her to understand. It's about choosing life, but it's about knowing how much she's loved by God and through us. And so we work really hard to make sure that the volunteers that we train are able to pass that on. So we help with practical, emotional, and spiritual help. And so whoever she's matched with, that team just, they call her, they text her, they go visit, they start working with her as soon as possible. And our turnaround time is pretty quick. So it can be, a day or 2. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but it's pretty quick that the team will reach out to her and say, how are you doing? We want to get together. We want to talk with you. We want to support you. And, whatever it is she needs, and she'll need a lot of things in the beginning and it'll change over time. And that doesn't matter to us. We just continue to work with her, again, with practical, emotional, and spiritual support. So in the beginning, the team might see her and talk with her pretty often. And she might need baby items specifically if the baby's about to be born, or if she needs maternity clothes, or if she's out on the street and she's living on the street and is homeless, or she has no food, or she's being abused by the person that she's living with, or you name it, there's all kinds of things. And so depending on her situation, that team can immediately jump in and either help her if they have the resources on their team in the church, or connect her with other people in the area. So other organizations that we know that could jump in for a specific thing. And so, we're a network of churches, but we also are a network of pro-life organizations that we work with. We do a really good job in fostering our relationships with the other organizations that might meet those needs, so that in any one instance, we can call upon them and they can call upon us to help this mom and her family for a long term. So in the immediate term, it's a crisis often, and there's a lot of intense conversations and getting together and helping in ways. But over time, the idea is that when she calls us, we might call her a client. We call them moms, But we hope that she becomes a family member and a friend. Like we hope that in, as soon as possible, she's no longer, considered a client, but she's really just a part of our community. She's a friend, she's a family member. And so often that happens. And, I hear stories of the volunteers at the churches are now Grandma Joe or Grandma Mary or something. And that's what it's meant to be. And so that's our long-term goal for all of the moms that call our helpline originally.
Oh, that's beautiful. What does the training that you offer look like?
So it's an online training, and the very first training is about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And so a volunteer might sign up on our website, or they can call us and register. We have this training once a month in the evening, and then we have one also once a month during the day. But if there's enough people at your church that want to be trained, we can come to you or have a specific training just for your church, for your team. But it's really an overall training about who we are as Gabriel Network, who the moms are, kind of some specific scenarios. We talk a lot about boundaries. We talk a lot about our resources. We talk a lot about, how it is we serve in practical, emotional, and spiritual. What does that mean? And, how can you invite a mom to church with you without, her feeling afraid of this new environment, whether it's the church she's used to going to or a different church? How can we make her feel loved and welcomed wherever it is? How can we pray with her in a way that she'll understand that, we are bringing her closer to God. We're trying to teach her about God, but through his love through us. And so a lot of different things go into the initial training. It's pretty jam-packed with stuff, but I'll say, so then what we do is over the course of a year, every other month, we have what we call a mission deep dive. And that's also online. And we talk about a specific thing. So one might be, how do the church teams work with pregnancy centers specifically? And, the pregnancy centers are there. They're the front lines for pregnancy tests, for sonograms, for counseling. They have items. And we work very closely with the pregnancy centers in the very beginning as well. And we need them. And they're spread out all across Maryland and DC as well. And they serve a specific purpose. And so we try to connect all of our teams with their local pregnancy center. In addition to that, the moms might need housing. They might be homeless. They might be literally on the street or living in their car. And so what happens then? How do you serve them? We currently have 2 maternity homes and one that we're moving to a different location, hopefully closer to Baltimore. And so how do they get into our program? If they don't qualify for our program, what other programs are available? How can we help them get into other housing programs? So it's very specific. And then, another one might be talking about, where do you find items? Where do you find diapers and wipes or strollers or car seats or whatever, for the moms when they need stuff? Where do you find it quickly? Where do you find it inexpensively? How does that work? So the mission deep dives are every other month, and they're meant to the continuous training for we call them angel friends, those volunteers. They're ongoing training that we just have, continuously every other month to kind of specifically talk about something that the angel friends might be either struggling with or just really seeing come up a lot that we want to talk a little bit about more.
It sounds like there's a fair amount that is really localized information, but it also sounds like there's a lot that would be valuable for people who don't necessarily live in the area. Are those trainings open to people who want to kind of observe from a distance, over the web, how, and learn about how your organization does things so that they could do them and then implement them however that might work where they are?
Absolutely. Yeah. So our business name is the Gabriel Project. We do business as Gabriel Network, but there are other Gabriel Projects across the country. There are about 10 to 15 other Gabriel Projects that have a similar model as we do. Ours is not strictly Catholic churches. We are Christian churches that are pro-life. So that's what makes us different from the other ones, and partly why we call ourselves Gabriel Network. But we have invited several of the Gabriel Projects across the country to visit and to be part of our training. As far as, we're always trying to help each other out and, update how our training goes. There was even one in Costa Rica that started, and they called us up and we're like, yeah, jump on. It's so great to be able to have this online tool. that we can share with each other, and be real honest about how things work here versus how things work there. And we love to share resources whenever we can. Very open about that, because we know that we can't do this by ourselves. And so the more we help each other, the more moms we can help. There are a lot of moms that need help, and we can only do so much. So we really try to work together, and it's been wonderful just watching that happen.
It's really fantastic to see. We could talk a lot about the effects of technology and our interconnectedness, and a lot of times that talk tends to be negative, but I think this is a beautiful example of really what some people call baptizing the technology space and the internet space, and helping people to actually harness these tools to build real communities and to make a big impact in the actual real world, face-to-face world. It's beautiful.
That's right.
How did you come to work with Gabriel Network?
So I used to be a high school youth minister I did it for 15 years at a local Catholic church. It was wonderful. And I have 4 children. And in that time, I was able to be a stay-at-home mom as well as work as a high school youth minister on nights and weekends and make that work for my family. So it was really wonderful. And one of the service projects we did was with the Gabriel Network. The maternity home was right across the street. So the kids in our youth group would go and babysit or help do some cleaning or yard work or whatever. And so the very first executive director, we started in 1995. And so I started as a youth minister in 1996. And so the original executive director was coming around and talking to everybody. And so I knew him and the startup from the get-go. And then I became great friends with him. And actually the picture behind me has a story, because our first executive director, Jim Sharbaugh, what is the person I'm talking about. And he was an altar server when he was young, and his church burned down. And they saved this picture and they gave it to him. And it was such a wonderful picture of the memory of his church and altar serving when he was young. And he hung it in his first office as the executive director. And he remembers, the first phone call, and he was sitting at his desk, and the first phone call, and a mom was calling from a payphone, and she was homeless and she was scared. He didn't know what to do. And he's like, oh my gosh. And so he starts praying right away, and he's like, God, what do I do? And he, distinctly heard God tell him, what makes you think you're in charge? And the peace just came over him. God told him, I'm in charge. I got this. You got to trust in me, and you got to give it over to me, and all will be well if you just continue to practice doing that. So you may not be able to read what that says, but it says, what makes you think you're in charge? And so then there's a little picture in there where Jim is giving this picture to the next executive director, passing it on. And then that executive director was our recent one, and he gave it to me. So I have it here, just the memory of the beginning of our organization, the people, that were part of it, but ultimately God, that we have to trust in, and that we know it's not up to us. Anything that happens is not because of us. It's because of the gifts that he gave us. And if we use them for his glory and his love to pass on, to practice loving our neighbor, that's what we are told to do every day. And practicing loving our neighbor is hard. And who's our neighbor, and how do we love them? And that's what we do here every day. We love these church volunteers. We love the moms who call us. We love each other as staff, but we have to practice it every day, loving our neighbor and trusting in God that he'll give us the gifts to do that. And so ultimately, that's what we strive for. So so that's just a little. So Jim Sharbaugh was at daily mass one day, and I was, my youngest was going to school. He was, so I was looking for a daytime job. And so I ran into Jim at daily mass, and I said, hey, Jim, I'm looking for a job during the day. And he's like, well, there happens to be something, opening up part-time. So that was 12 years ago. And, so then I came on as executive assistant then, and started working. And then in the last year and a half, I became the director.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And then this is on YouTube, but we also have some listeners who are listening via just audio only on the podcast app. So could you describe the image that we're seeing real briefly for the people who are audio only?
Yeah, it's a picture of Jesus hanging on the cross, and it just has people all around him in different phases of mourning and just being present with him in this agony and suffering. But that ultimately it's glory, and so we, as Catholics, we look at suffering and we think about suffering as a both hard thing, but such a beautiful gift. And so, it's a reminder that Jesus suffered so much for us, and God gave us his only son. And so to be thankful for that every day is really what we strive to do. And so this is, just a beautiful picture of Jesus on the cross.
Yeah, that is a great picture to go along with what you're talking about, this, to remember that he has already done the hard work, and that it's ultimately all up to him. That we just bring our 2 loaves or 5 loaves and 2 fish, whatever it is, however many loaves we have today. And
sometimes it's just a crumb, but you know what?
Yeah, definitely. Crumbs. So what is life like for the women who find help through Gabriel Network?
Well, it's such a varying degree, as far as they all will meet with their angel friends on a regular basis, whatever that means. Sometimes it's daily, sometimes weekly, sometimes it's in person or over the internet, sometimes it's texting or calling. We try to do all of them, and just depending on where they are and how far away they are and stuff. But the women who call us just feel immediate love right from the beginning of when they're talking to someone on the helpline. The ladies who answer our helpline have just the biggest hearts you could ever imagine, and the way that they're able to express that love is just beautiful. And so the moms right from the very beginning know that they're loved and know that God loves them, we love them, and there's a whole community of people that love them and want to support them. So they call us on the phone, and sometimes, or they can text us or email us. And so whatever way it is that they contact our helpline, they're connected to us, and then immediately they're connected to the churches, and that can be, sometimes the church volunteers will help either get them rides, like if they have encourage them to get prenatal care and kind of talk to them about where are they in that phase. And sometimes they give them rides to the doctor's appointments or go with them, or sometimes help them with like an Uber cost, now and again, if they need for, doctor's appointments or whatever. And then they'll follow up and say, how'd it go? And, check in on them. And then as their pregnancy moves along, they're just constantly checking in on them and introducing them to the other people on the team, and ultimately the community at large, inviting them to come to church or helping them to go to the church that they already go to, kind of talking about their situation at home, wherever they're living, or finding a home sometimes. Again, it depends on, sometimes it's like, I need to find a place to live tomorrow. Sometimes it's, I'm doing well, and I already have 4 kids and it's just a lot, can you help with babysitting or something? So it really is, sometimes they're, unfortunately, 14 or 15 years old. Sometimes they're 39 or 40 years old. So you can imagine just the wide range of differences, both from their needs and their experience to what they want, what they need, what they need to feel loved. And so it's really about forming a relationship with them, whatever that means, and doing it slowly, as gently as possible, so that they can learn to trust. A lot of times that trust is the hardest thing to gain, and it takes a while, and often almost always there's some traumatic background, whether it's a traumatic situation or just life in general wasn't so great. And so the trust isn't really there. So to work on that trust in a gentle, loving way is always started, from the very, very beginning. And, as that trust develops and the friendship develops and the relationship develops, then more it can be talked about. Sometimes it means the people that they're living with, the relationship isn't so good. So sometimes it's about mending relationships. It's about learning how to compromise, or learning how to just kind of let things be and work with what we have, and patience. I mean, it's all the stuff that we all we
Right.
are all constantly trying to practice, right? And so we're helping them to learn how to practice. So it's just a lot of, a little at a time. Sometimes it's a lot quickly, depends on what's needed.
I'm curious, and maybe you don't keep stats on this, but I'm wondering if you know anything about the rates of maybe women who reach out to contact, maybe they have that initial, first call, first text, first email. How many of those women who make that first step then also end up following up and connecting with the community, versus many maybe they have the courage to do it once and then they fall off the radar, by their own choice.
Yeah, I had some numbers pulled up just from this last fiscal year, which is July 1st to June 30th. We had 268 women call us. And then we actually were able to match 169 of them. So of the 268, some didn't qualify because either they don't live in Maryland or they already had the baby. So that would be a reason why they don't qualify. And sometimes men call us, and sometimes, you get random calls, people that really don't know who they're calling. But of the people that were eligible, that already went down from 268 to 202. So there was, a good number that weren't eligible, but then we made matches of 169. So those are the ones that actually followed through, that we were able to match with churches. And so just to kind of, we talk about how many matches were made, but then also how many moms were serving. And so that number is very different because the match is just the beginning. And we do talk about long-term relationships. So this year we made 169 matches. Last year we made 163 matches. The year before we made so many. And so those moms are still being served. So it just compounds. So over the, 28 years of service, there's thousands of moms that have been served, and some now we're not serving them anymore just because they're part of our family and community at this point. And that is, again, the ultimate goal. We don't say we're done serving you, we're not going to help you anymore. We don't ever say that. So that's one thing that we really try to encourage.
So sometimes the pro-abortion side argues that the pro-life side needs to be doing more to help women and their babies. What do you think is the best way to respond to that?
We always can be doing more. And yes, I agree. We all can be doing more. And we should be doing more. And we are. And that's one thing that I'm excited about, because I see what's happening. I see what we're doing. And so I see how many people it takes to serve a mom because of all the different needs. And so us working together is really beneficial for all of us in serving the way we serve best, but ultimately the pro-life community in serving the mom. And so working together. So I would say responding is, yes, absolutely, in humility. It's not perfect. It's not even close to perfect. And we need your help. That's what I would say to them. However it is that you can help, please do. And we are praying for you to help, and we're praying for other people to help, because we know you have the gifts that can help us and can help these women know their value and know their love. And so yes, there's ultimately more that we all can do and should be doing and are doing. The excitement and energy right now is palpable. That I know we'll probably talk about Roe v. Wade a little bit, but the excitement from that, of people wanting to get involved, what can I do, is just wonderful. And so I see it happening every day. People calling, people, emailing, what can I do? And it's been wonderful. And so we have a long way to go. So I would tell people who are concerned that, yes, we do have a long way to go, and we are working hard to do it. And but ultimately, the value of life is what we're talking about. That your life, the person who's questioning this, is beyond value. Just like the mom's life who's calling us, just like the baby's life, just like all her family members. And you can't put a value on that. You can't put this isn't, the person that should be in this world. That's not for us to say. And everyone has the ultimate value because God made you perfect and perfectly. And we want everyone to know that.
Beautiful. So as you mentioned, obviously a lot has changed in the abortion landscape over the past year. Can you describe the moment when you heard the Dobbs leak? What were you thinking?
I was at the office, and so we all started talking about it at work. And, actually, it didn't strike me as much as you would think, because I know we live in the state of Maryland and in DC. And so the laws here are, very pro-choice, and we know that this state's going to really not be changing a whole lot. You can have an abortion up to the day the baby's born, and it's really sad, and I don't see that changing in the near future. But really, we don't want to, here at Gabriel Network, we want to change hearts. We don't want a mom to not have an abortion because she can't. We don't want her to want to have an abortion. We want her to know that we love her, God loves her, that we're here to help her with whatever it is. Whatever it is not insurmountable. And we have a lot of resources. We are connected to people with a lot of resources, and whatever it is we can help with. And so, we want her to know that. And so ultimately, it didn't really change a whole lot in my mind that we were going to be doing. It's just that I knew there would be an influx of excitement and volunteering and stuff, and potentially churches coming on board. So we had great conversations about what happens if 100 people call us tomorrow, and all that kind of stuff.
Did 100 people call you?
No, but we're like definitely more, and we're ready for it. And so we're like, okay, we're ready, because we've been building, over the last couple of years for sure, a good base in the hopes that it would be overturned. And so, yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I definitely think people are feeling the momentum, and people who maybe didn't have hope for change now see that change is possible. But I do love what you said about, we don't want her to not have an abortion because she can't, but really that goal is to change hearts.
Yeah.
So amen to that. Now, on the flip side of that wonderful momentum, we also know that a number of pregnancy centers and pro-life groups have experienced real acts of terrorism in the wake of that decision. Has the Gabriel Network been affected by any of that? And has your organization changed at all in response to these threats and these terrorist acts that have taken place?
Not a whole lot. We have maternity homes, and we did have someone throw a bottle of hot sauce through our window, but that was the only actual act of vandalism. But we have security cameras in all of them, so we didn't need to like up our security or any of that stuff. We're very mindful of it going on, and we want to help our churches if any of the churches that we work with are seeing vandalism. And so, just as far as like being cognizant of even not just like physical harm, but like data, people trying to steal data and, that kind of thing. So it's on our radar, but we're not afraid of it. And we haven't changed a whole lot just because, living in fear isn't what we want to do. So we want to live in the hope and be aware and be diligent in all the things, that we need to do for safety, but ultimately trusting in God.
Are there any especially memorable moments that you have had working in this ministry?
Yeah, I would say there's, one, so working with moms every once in a while. So we work mostly with churches from our staff, but we have maternity homes. And I had the opportunity to be part of our Gaithersburg maternity home last year for quite some time. I was working out of the home. We were transitioning a house director. And so I was like a sub at the time. And so we had a mom that was there, and just I wasn't able to be with her at the hospital to have the baby, but when she came home, just the joy on her face, and she came and just gave me a hug and was like beaming, just with this joy of this baby. And I can't really describe like how wonderful it was, but you could tell just how happy she was and joyful, and her face and that smile will stick in my head forever. And so then on another completely different avenue is, we had talked a little bit about working together as organizations. And I will say that we had, not too long ago, we had hired someone who was new to the organization, and she had come more from the secular world and was, used to dealing with kind of, political, things or whatever. And so I had invited her to a couple of meetings with other pro-life organizations, other fundraising groups, and that kind of thing. And she was so surprised that we shared so much with each other, that we were open and giving and collaborating, and like the genuine, care for each other's well-being and goodness, and working together in a way that was so open and honest and helpful to each other. And it kind of was surprising to me, but it really was a glaring reminder that we are different. We are special. Our Christian community, our pro-life community, like really does want to work together, and really does. I mean, we're not going to like breach any confidentiality or that kind of thing. But as far as like resources or how we did things or some good tips or advice or whatever, it's real. It's real that we want to help each other. And so to be part of those organizations, and then for her to be part of it kind of as an outsider coming in and voicing that, was really a moment for me that was an eye-opener. That I've been working here for 10, 11 years,
right,
and that's kind of that's how we are. But then you hear someone say that and you're like, it is really special around here.
Do you think of a specific example of that kind of collaboration?
It really just like, some of the pro-life organizations get together. So like some Catholic Charities, Project Rachel, some other maternity homes, some of the pregnancy centers. We recently got together, and we're just talking about like, documents that we would use to kind of analyze things, or like intake forms, or, just different ways to look at things, or resources for like local food banks, or local, resources for getting a car. Like, have you guys had experience getting vehicles for change kind of a thing, or whatever, like what's worked, what hasn't worked, different things like that. And we would actually kind of help in those regards.
That's interesting. And I can also imagine people listening, maybe they have an idea for something they want to start, but also feeling like, there's so much out there already. Why would my efforts matter? Or why would this organization or this need that I see, why would it matter why should I start another organization? There are already so many people working on this in different facets. So what would you say about that?
I would say, come talk to me. It's always needed. And, we don't want to duplicate our efforts. Like, you're right in that regard, that if someone is already doing it, we don't want to, recreate the wheel. And that's why we work with so many people. But Maryland is a big, US is huge, but Maryland and DC are big, and that each county has its own laws and its own resources. And each city and each town, they're all just very different. And some might have this organization here, but if you're going like to, the Eastern Shore or somewhere, like to get there, they're not even close to having anywhere near this. So like to get the things that you need, depending on where you are, is important. But then there's often like a nuance to it that, oh, this would be perfect if only it just had this, or if it was easier to access, or if like, whatever, different things. And so I would say, definitely do research about what's out there, and then talk to the people that might need it, like us, or the churches that we work with, to what is it that you need about it? What is it that makes it different? Childcare is a big, big deal. How does childcare work? How do we get connected? Is there any way that this childcare center can work with this childcare center? And there's like a piece needed in the middle there. Just, you never know what it is. But if you have a gift that you want to use for God's glory, go for it. Go for it.
Beautiful. What would you say to a woman who is on the fence? Maybe she wants to have her baby, but she's feeling a lot of fear, pressure from other people in her life, other influences. What would you say to her?
I would just tell her that she's loved by God more than she could ever imagine, her and her baby. And, yeah, he loves her ultimately. We love her. There's nothing that we can't help her with. There's nothing that we can't work through with her. And, ultimately, fear is strapped, your next decisions. And so the peace and love that God can bring will help that fear, and the community that's involved with Gabriel Network. And again, the long term, we're not going to just say, here you go do this, or work on this for a little bit of time, but we're here to help from the beginning for as long as needed. And so, just the peace that God and the relationship with him, and knowing about him, and knowing like he made you, and the value that he's put on you in creating you is just unbelievable to think about. And so to just understand that a little bit, that hopefully will help her to understand how much she's loved.
I'm curious about and maybe you know this or maybe you don't, but women who come and they're thinking about adoption versus women who are coming and wanting or intending to keep their baby, or maybe they don't know when they come to you. Do you have any idea on that? Because I think that, having the support and the level of support that you're describing in that community must make just a huge difference in these women's lives.
Yeah. Do you mean the number of people that want to choose adoption versus choosing parenting when they call us? Is that what you're asking? Or
Yeah,
more?
and maybe they have something in mind at the beginning, and maybe they choose that, and you support them through that, or maybe they choose something different. I'm just curious about the adoption question.
Yeah, I will say most, very, very high percentage want to parent when they call us. And so, we obviously talk about parenting and help them with parenting skills and classes and stuff. We speak very highly of adoption. We have people calling us and emailing us and sending us letters all the time that want to adopt, all the time. And it breaks my heart that that it's just so hard to adopt babies. So many people want to, loving families that would just give everything they have to adopt these babies. And a lot of them are my friends and family and community members. And I know the life that the babies would have, and the children growing up would have. And it breaks my heart that it's so hard for them, to adopt. And so whenever a mom does, even voice the idea of it, we would connect her with the local pregnancy center. And so we aren't ever like the middleman between adoption and the adoptive parents, but we have people on our staff who've chosen adoption for their child, people who have been adopted themselves. We have people on staff who foster children. And so we have staff members and volunteers that can talk about all the different options that they have experienced. And they're all just beautiful. They're just very beautiful. And so to be able to hear someone who's gone through it, I think is also beneficial if we were to have someone that had any questions about it. So we don't have many moms who are thinking about adoption when they call us.
So what would you say to people who are listening, and maybe they're adamantly pro-life, but they're not really sure what to do with that passion, or they haven't really taken first steps into turning that passionate position into action? What are some avenues, either direct volunteer work or advocacy, that you might suggest to somebody in that position who's looking to take the first steps and turn that passion into action?
Well, we have a lot of volunteer opportunities with Gabriel Network. The main one is being an angel friend at a church. So if you're part of a Christian pro-life church now, you may already have a team at your church that's going. You can join that team, and it could be a man or a woman serving a mom who's connected with that team. If it's a man, then typically that man would work with a woman when they went to visit the mom in person. They could also work with the father of the baby, which is something we really promote, as a man and a group of men, especially helping the father of the baby as well. So that's the number one. Most of our volunteers are angel friends. We currently have, I think, 201 active angel friends that are actively serving, but then there's there's those communities as well within the church. So sometimes the angel friends are serving the moms directly, but the mom needs, help writing a resume or interview skills or whatever. And so they might not have those skills, but someone else in their church might, or they might need legal help, or they might need their car tune up or something like that. And so the angel friends might not have those resources themselves or have those skills, but they reach out to the community members. So even just letting, if there's a team at your church, know that you're interested in helping as like a peripheral volunteer with something specific, that's also really good. We are always in need of helpline volunteers. So you can answer the helpline from your home on, a couple of hours a week basis, especially if you speak Spanish. We would love to have volunteers to do that. We would love to be able to expand the number of hours our helpline is open. We try to have 2 on at a time so that as a call comes in, we can always answer it. Because sometimes we're texting and emailing and returning calls at the same time. So we always want to have 2 people on so that we're available to answer the phone, because that really makes a difference when you're there to answer the phone. So answering the helpline is another big deal. We have, other volunteer avenues might be like helping with social media or advertising. We are always in need of, people that are good at that and willing to spend some time doing that. Also, even advertising like a bumper, magnet on your car or whatever. I have these bumper magnets and like cards that we hand out, like sidewalk counseling is and this is a card that we hand out that kind of has like what we do on the back of it with practical, emotional, and spiritual support, where they can just hand these to the mom, if they happen to be sidewalk counseling or talking with someone that's in need, just to kind of help us get the word out. We have signs at all of our churches that have angel friend teams, permanent signs. And so, going by is good advertising and a good way to help, like just let the moms know that we're available. But in addition to that, they could, help with our fundraisers, like our gala. We have a vineyard event in September in Annapolis, just publicizing it or helping us put it together in, those kind of things. And then they could also, donate items either to our maternity homes or directly to churches that would need items to give to the moms. And, they could help in those regards too. But praying is the number one thing that we need. So prayers every day, prayers every time you see a pregnant woman, every time you think about a pregnant woman, every time you see a baby, say a prayer for the moms who are considering abortion today, because the pressure that they feel inside, but that they hear on a constant basis, we need prayers to help combat that and to help them to open their hearts to call us and to know about us. Lastly, I will say, it's most of the moms who call us attend church or are Christian, and they either are currently attending church or have not too long ago. And so we have heard that they aren't hearing a whole lot from the pulpit as far as the pro-life message. So they both are attending church and considering abortion because they feel judged and shunned if they're not married and are pregnant. And so then what happens is they leave the church because they don't feel the welcome. So talking about it at church and maybe asking your pastor or whoever's doing the homily, the deacon, to maybe talk about the, pro-life, about welcoming babies and, that kind of situation.
So important. And I want to go back. You mentioned fathers a little bit earlier. How often are the fathers involved? And do you ever get a call that's just from the father, or is it usually always you're working with the mother and then that's how the father gets involved?
Yeah, the fathers don't call too often unless they're married. Sometimes the father, if it's the husband, he'll call sometimes. But typically it's the mother who's pregnant will call us. Sometimes it's her mother who calls us. But I don't actually have the statistics of how many father of the babies are involved, but I know it's quite a few. And there's the dynamic there of wanting to keep that relationship, sometimes the moms want to, sometimes they don't want to, depends on what the situation is. But we're trying to really get a little bit more involved in the father's life as well. It's not something that we currently have set up, but it's a place that we want to go in the future. And definitely talking to the Fatherhood Initiative is a great organization that we try to work with and promote as well. And then I know a lot of pregnancy centers have father ministries as well. So when the mother is coming in for a test or counseling or something, they encourage the father of the baby to come into. So we try to use those resources when we can. But if there's ever an angel friend on the team or in the community that is interested in that, we really try to promote and really ask the question to the mom: is the father of the baby around? Would he be interested in coming in as well? So we're working on getting better at that too.
Great. And so we will have links in the show notes, of course, for people who are wanting to get involved in the DC, Maryland area. Now, you did mention the broader Gabriel Project in other areas.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are listening and are wanting to connect with the Gabriel Project that might be in their area, or if they don't have a Gabriel Project in their area, what direction would you offer them?
As far as contacting their Gabriel Project, you can just Google and find it in the states that they're in. But there's always a maternity home in the area. There's always a pregnancy center. And so those are always good places to start, the maternity homes and the pregnancy centers, if there's not a Gabriel Project, or both, just because we all work together. But in addition, I would say to just keep your eyes and ears open to pregnant women, because it might seem like they're fine, but if you listen closely or talk to them a little bit more, sometimes you learn a little bit about their struggling, and just be open to that person that you work with, that person that lives near you, that person that you saw in the grocery store. You just never know. And so praying for openness to seeing and hearing the needs of a pregnant woman, and not having fear in talking to her and saying, Gabriel Network is here, or let me see if I can help you find one in our state or another, place that might help you with the thing that you need right now.
And churches that maybe have already an active pro-life ministry, but are looking to expand and kind of bring the Project Gabriel model to their area, where would they go to find information about that? Or how does that look like? If they are ready, they have the people in place, they want to start, this is a great idea, we want to expand and connect, what's the next step that they would take?
So they can just go to our website, gabrielnetwork.org, and there's a volunteer tab, which would connect you with the training. And so everyone would have to take the training to begin with. But there's also, once you're connected to the training, then the person who does our training is our church-based ministry director, Dan Miller. And so he would be the one to get the whole new team started as well. Okay. So even just, going on our website and saying, I want to volunteer, I want to take the training, kind of get you into our system, and then further discussions can happen really easily from there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything else we haven't discussed that you think listeners should know?
I think that really just being open to what the Lord is calling you to do. You have been given gifts, and to learn about what those gifts are, to discern and to pray about what they are, because God gave you gifts for a reason, and He wants you to use those gifts. And so really try to figure out what they are, and really work on and practice using those gifts. It takes practice, and we're all always practicing to love our neighbor better and to love God better. And so I would just, really encourage you to discern what your gifts are and get working and using them to help pregnant women in crisis and all the families that need them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate you being here.